Welcome back, everyone. It is almost time. The ribs have been in the oven for about 3.5 hours at this point. They've been at 275. I cover them tightly in foil. I put a little bit of brown ale in them, and this house smells really good. I've also had the barbecue sauce that I pureed using a stick blender, and it is pretty amazing looking. Tastes really good, a little bit spicy, which is what I was going for. Has some good caramelization. That molasses and the brown sugar definitely helped it. So here we go. So we're about to pull the ribs out of the oven. We're going to brush them with barbecue sauce. This will be the first time I've even checked on them. I didn't peek at them at all. Let's take a look. It's that time, here we go. Like I said, the whole house has smelled incredible at this point. I'm gonna pull one of the racks out right now. We will all take a look at the exact same time at what they look like. All right, so about 3.5 hours, 275, and here we go. I'm gonna peel this back. Just in this first little bit, you can see that the bone is pulled, the meat is pulled back from the bone, which is telling me that it's been cooking nicely. And oh yeah, these look really, really good. So some of the brown ale has now mingled in with the fat. It's been steaming these ribs for this entire time, this entire 3.5 hours. The smell coming off of it is really incredible. A lot of the fat that I found undesirable has cooked off on the outside. A lot of the fat was here. There's still a little bit of fat that's down here, so we'll be careful of that when we're eating them with spare ribs. I'm going to pour off some of this fat into a kind of a larger pan rather than putting it down the drain. So we'll move this like that. We're going to pour the fat off, and then we will end up with a pretty dry pan. So all this liquid in the pan is going into this kind of flat pan. At this point, I'm going to use some tongs. Let me grab some tongs here. That'll hold the ribs in place while I continue on with the pan. It'll also kind of tell me where we are texture-wise with the ribs, and just kind of putting the tongs into them, the ribs started to come apart right here. So these look really good. So at this point, I have that liquid out of the pan. I know that we're going to get a lot of caramelization. I'm going to put this oven up to about 450. Some people like to use the broiler for this. My problem with the broiler is it just scorches the pan so badly that it makes it almost impossible to clean. Or at this 450, we're going to get a more even caramelization without burning it. So here, we're going to take some of the barbecue sauce. And I've used a stick blender. You could use a Vitamix if you have one, or any blender at home. I still wanted it to have a little bit of texture, so I didn't go too long with that stick blender, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then after that, I tasted it, and with this batch of barbecue sauce, I adjusted it slightly. I added just a little bit more apple cider vinegar and a little bit more molasses, because that chipotle, some of those chipotles were pretty darn big, and they made the sauce kind of spicy. So I kind of tamed it down a little bit for the kids here. I'm using a pastry brush for the barbecue sauce. It's just kind of my preferred method. So all I'm going to do is gently go back and forth, trying not to waste too much of the sauce off to the side. I'm trying to coat each part of the surface area of the ribs. So remember, we had that rub that had chili powder, salt and pepper, a little bit of celery powder, and some garlic powder in it. And all those aromatics have come out really nicely. So I want this to be kind of an even coat so that when I'm getting the caramelization, it's going to keep from burning. So I'm going to try and get each little part without spilling too much onto the pan, because that stuff on the pan will definitely burn all this molasses and brown sugar in the sauce. Getting the sides here with the brush. That was pretty darn generous. I'm probably going to remove a little bit of this sauce. I'm going to make sure that I get a little bit on the front here. I know that some of it's going to go into the pan. It is what it is. I actually might not remove the sauce. I'm liking where we are here. So I have a pretty good layer working on the ribs. Yeah, I'm happy with it. So that layer will go back in the oven at 450. It's going to take about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to pull this other rack out. Here comes rack number 2. We're also all seeing it at the first time, or for the first time. Let's see what it looks like. Here we go. Oh yeah. All right, so same thing. We've had the meat pull back from the bone a little bit. It looks fantastic. It smells great. We're going to pour this liquid into that pan. Use my tongs to hold the ribs in place. Now, unlike baby back ribs, there's a lot more meat here in these spare ribs. So when we're cutting them into serving sizes, really an appropriate way to do it, rather than serving it as a whole rack, is to cut them by 2 to 3 bones each, and then when you're plating them, you almost want to cross them on top of each other. We'll do that when we get to that point. So we're going to sauce these guys. This is the one time I would definitely say be generous with saucing. What we're trying to do is get all of the sauce caramelized on the ribs so that you don't need extra sauce. If we do this right, you shouldn't need any additional sauce with these. I know a lot of times you go to a place, you get your ribs, and then you want your side of sauce, and sometimes it just ends up messing with the temperature a little bit. The sauce that's not caramelized isn't quite as good as the one that is. So I'm being really generous with it. All right. So once we get all this sauce in, I'll put these ribs also back in the oven. I will have to swap them out rack to rack, because at that high temperature, the oven's not going to cook evenly. So I want to try and get them done at the same time. Once they're in, I'm going to get all of the ingredients for the potato salad and the coleslaw dressing that I'm going to make. So I already have kind of everything set aside. That potato salad, I'm going to put celery, radishes, pickles, a little bit of mayonnaise, red onion, radishes, and the eggs that I kind of halfway between soft and hard boiled. It's that kind of perfect, like you'd find for a niçoise salad, that the yolk is cooked, but it's not completely hard. And it should help make the potato salad super creamy. All right, so I'm getting these completely covered in this sauce. This sauce, along with this rub that I did, should make just an absolutely great bite. Plenty of salt on here. Buddy is down here smelling the ribs, and he's hoping to get a bite. Unfortunately for him, with all the sauce and spice in it, it's not going to happen. All right, so I think I'm good with how these ribs are looking, and they will go back in the oven. Still a little bit hot to touch, so I'll use my All right, so they're in, and now we move on. I'll get a paper towel. few of the drippings here. So the first thing we'll do is work on the coleslaw dressing. I'll bring over the ingredients for the potato salad, but let's work on this coleslaw dressing first. So it's a super easy recipe for the coleslaw. So I'm just going to take my mayonnaise, and you can do it one of two ways. You can go with more of a creamy dressing, or you can go with a more vinegary. I'm doing a little bit of each. So I have 3 heaping scoops of mayonnaise that I've put in. I'm going to take some honey rather than sugar, because honey seems to distribute that sweetness a little bit better than sugar does. So the honey will take just a minute to get down here. And with the honey, for the 3 scoops of mayo, I'm going to put what I'd call maybe a tablespoon and a half-ish. If you like a really sweet dressing, you can put more in. If you don't like it as sweet, you can put less in. I'm just using wildflower honey. It's really fantastic. You can use celery salt if you like. I am mixing the honey in with the mayo. I'm going to add in some apple cider vinegar to give it a little tang and to get it to the consistency I want. So the apple cider vinegar, I'm probably going to go about 2 tablespoons worth. And then some salt and pepper. You notice everything I do involves salt and pepper. It's just helps bring out the flavor, the salt does, and that pepper adds just an extra layer. And where did my pepper go? Oh, it's right here. So with the salt and pepper, it's just enough to taste, and just a little bit of each. So there's my mayo, vinegar, salt, pepper, and honey mixture. Using just a spoon to mix it. Here's where we are consistency-wise. You can use poppy seeds if you like in this dressing. So I'm tasting it. I definitely taste the honey. I'm actually going to put a splash more vinegar in here so that I have a little bit more of an acidic dressing, because I'm looking for something to balance out this creamy potato salad we're about to have. So there is the coleslaw dressing. We'll dress the coleslaw and let it sit in that in the dressing. So I have tricolor cabbage that I'm going to move into this mixing bowl. Tricolor cabbage right here. So I don't like to have the cabbage in the bowl first, not all of it at least. So I'm going to take a little bit of cabbage, put it in the bowl. I'm going to dress a little bit. It just helps it from clumping up. And then I'm going to add some more cabbage. It also helps me not overdress this slaw, because I want to be able to taste every component and not just have a dressing bomb and not have a dry cabbage either. So I'm going to keep layering this like a sandwich. I have just a little bit left in the cup, but I'm going to, at this point, toss this and see where we are. So I'm moving this coleslaw around, just checking to make sure that I'm not overdressed, not underdressed. Right now it looks like I might be just a little bit under, so I'm going to add a touch more dressing. I have about a tablespoon in here left. That should be the right amount for what we have. And if you end up, for some reason, running out of the dressing, you put too much cabbage in, you can always just add a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of mayonnaise, and just kind of work it in that way. So for me, I am pretty happy with consistency and how it looks. I'm gonna taste it. Super happy. Wow. Really, really happy with how it's tasting. So I'm gonna set this off to the side. It's ready to go. I'm gonna check on the ribs. I may swap them around. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I already see some caramelization here on this top one. So I'm gonna move the one that was in the middle. I have nothing on the bottom rack because I don't want anything to burn. So I'm moving the middle rack to the top, and I'm moving the top rack back down to the middle. And that should help them cook a little bit more evenly. All right, so we have our eggs that I've chopped, red onion, pickles, radishes, celery. What's the important part? Oh yeah, the potatoes. Oh yeah, here they are. Here are the potatoes. So after I was done boiling them for took about 12 minutes, I put them in an ice bath and then put them in the refrigerator. And they're kind of that perfect consistency where they're not going to smash, but when you bite into it, it's fully cooked. So we'll start things off with the pickles. Let's move this out of the way. So on this, all I'm trying to do is get them to cut in something that you can pick up with your fork that's not too big and that's not too small that will end up at the bottom of that bowl. So for these, I'm just gonna cut them maybe, what is that, 1/4 of an inch? So they're relatively big pieces, but they're much smaller than the pieces of potato. So on this one, I actually have my fingers exposed because I'm holding the pickles in place. So this is where I want to be a lot more careful than if I'm cutting, say, maybe an onion or something that I can use my knuckles. All right, so there we are. There's the pickles. They will go right in with the potatoes. Now it's time for the celery. I'm going to cut the ends off. Probably can only use 2 stalks, but I have a 3rd one here just in case. With the celery, I go right down the middle. And I have them all here, and this I will cut a little bit smaller. I'm looking for the crunch of the celery and not necessarily a big overwhelming piece. When cutting celery, it's a lot easier if you have the ribs up as opposed to down. If they're down, you can actually get those little fibers that you aren't able to cut through, like you'll see right here. And your knife cuts through them a lot easier if they're not smashed up against the board. So ribs up is a much easier way to go about it. All right. My favorite part about making salad is sampling the vegetables as I'm doing it. So with raw red onion, I don't know. I like it, but I like it in moderation. So with what I'm trying to do here, I'm probably only going to cut off 2 slivers and put them in. So I'm going to take off the outside. I'm probably not going to use these middles at all for what I'm doing here. Pop them out. I'll slice this guy in half. I'll flip it over on top of itself, and that way I'm getting 4 pieces that I'm cutting at once. And this I'm gonna cut pretty darn small because I don't want a big, huge, massive piece of onion overwhelming me as I'm trying to eat this potato salad. So I'm going to cut some small pieces. I mean, this is not quite dicing, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, a really fine dice would be fine for this. So I think I'm happy with it. I might even come through and chop it one more time because I'm not looking for big pieces. So just pretty small onion, that'll go right in there. It's really pretty, that's for sure. At this point, I'm going to put the eggs in, and then I'll work on the radish, and we'll have it dressed. I'm going to go back and check the ribs one more time here. They are still caramelizing. So once you, here, let me bring you down to this. So here they are in the oven. So that bottom rack was up top first. I've swapped them out. And then we have this top one here. And you can see that they are definitely getting brown, but I want to keep going. I want to get right to the point before it would be burnt. So it's kind of that fine line. I'm going to guess it probably has 5 more minutes. I'm going to move this out of the way here, have our radishes. For this application, all I'm going to do is take off the top, take off the bottom. Easiest way to cut a radish is to put it right down on the spot that you cut it. I'm going to go straight down. I'm not cutting all the way through, so I almost have like an accordion effect that I've made here with the radish. I'm going to do the same thing coming through the other way, not going all the way through. And now I have almost like a flower. And then I'm going to go on its side. And there's our pieces of radish, and they'll go right in. So now with the end that I didn't cut all the way through, this is going to be a little bit harder to get that exact consistency I want and that exact shape. So here I'm going to do more of a rough chop. When you're chopping, you want to make sure to clean your knife off so those larger pieces don't stick on there. So there it goes. That was one. I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to do 2. I'm eyeballing it here and looks like the appropriate amount. All right, so there's our flour that we've made with the radish. There it is, and it's going to go right in. So before we've dressed it, here is what our potato salad looks like. You can't even see potatoes at this point. I'm going to bring this over here so everyone can see. And now it's kind of that, how much mayonnaise do we want to put in this to make it appropriate? So I'm going to, I always kind of eyeball this. So I'm going to put in 1, 2, maybe 2.5 dollops of mayo and hope that it's not overdressed. I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice at the end. You can add apple cider vinegar if you want to stay with that same flavor. I just like the freshness that that lemon brings. So I'm going to start getting into it. The salt and pepper I'm going to wait until the very end so that I don't oversalt the dish. So the nice part about all the freshness of the vegetables is it will stay super crunchy even as we're soak in this mayonnaise. And if you're not a huge mayonnaise fan, you can always use less. You can always use some more vinegar. I'm going to brighten it up with that lemon juice, like I said. You can actually see some of the egg yolks have, given it some great color as well. All right, so now that's in there. Let's find the lid to the mayonnaise, which I don't see right now, so I'll set this off to the side. So we'll put a little bit of salt. And be pretty generous with the pepper on it. I did find the mayonnaise lid, which is nice. Give it one more stir, and then I'll bring that lemon juice in from outside. So I'm going to be right back. I just want to make sure I'm getting all these potatoes down at the bottom. So I made a pretty creamy potato salad here that I need to brighten up. So I will be right back. Back here with the lemon, I'm going to check the ribs one more time. They are perfect. I'm going to turn the oven off and leave it cracked. And that will let the ribs still finish proofing, what I call, like you would bread. And just kind of help that barbecue sauce coagulate a little bit and be a little less runny. So lemon juice I'm going to put right on top. I still have not tasted this, so I have no idea on salt level. So I'm going to stir at this. The other things you can add other than vinegar, if you want to add pickle juice, that's totally acceptable and delicious. And here we go. Needs more salt for sure. Remember, we had potatoes and they soak up salt like crazy. So that was way undersalted. See where we are here. You're also welcome to add mustard into this potato salad if you like it. You can go in so many directions. That is much better. Oh my gosh, that's good. All right, happy with the potato salad. So potato salad's done, coleslaw's done. Let's pull the ribs out of the oven and get plating. All right, this is wow factor here. Look at these guys. Wow. I'm excited. Buddy's excited. All right, like I said, for plating on these guys, I am probably just going to cut them into two. Oh, and they're falling off the bone. Uh-oh. Wow, this is, it's going to be a little hard to keep them on this bone. They're also sticking just a little bit to the tray, which is awesome, because that's really that good caramelization that we got with the sauce. So I'm just kind of following along where I think that bone is. I'm lifting up a little bit, and it's going to kind of tell me, all right, here's where I am. And there's your ribs. So We'll grab our plate. The ribs will go on like so. So there's our ribs. I'll set the plate down right here. It's extremely hot. We'll bring the coleslaw over. We have our coleslaw. Let me get a better spoon here for it. So we're going to spoon a little bit of coleslaw right here. Here's our potato salad. I'll put some potato salad right here next to the coleslaw. And voila. I hope you enjoy, everyone.